Okay, good day, everybody. Today we're going to work on factoring quadratic equations when the a is 1. Now, it's important that you understand how to factor. Uh, the previous lesson I had dealt with factoring, uh, and you'll want to make sure you look at that so that this will make sense. If you're good at factoring, that's fine. If you're not, go back and watch the tutorial on factoring. So what are we talking about? Well, first of all, we're talking about a quadratic equation, okay? And with a quadratic equation, it's going to look a little funny. And this is what we're going to start off with. We're going to have something that looks like ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to y. Now, I know this is a quadratic equation because I have an x that is square. I have another x, or I have another variable that I don't see an exponent on. So I know it's 1. And then I have something without a variable at all. An example of this may look like this. X squared plus 3x, and this is the problem we're going to work on in a little bit. Minus 40 is y. And in front of the x squared, I don't see a number, so I know it's 1. My b is the number in front of the x to the power of 1, and the c is whatever is there without a variable. So this is a quadratic equation in standard form, and that's what we're going to be working with. So let me set up the problem. Okay, so we have the problem I just was talking about. We have x squared plus 3x minus 40 is y. Okay. This is a standard form for a linear equation. And once again, I'm just going to point out that a is whatever number is in front of the x squared. If I don't see one, it's automatically 1. B is whatever is in front of the x, and C is whatever does not have a variable. It's a quadratic equation because I have a variable square, a variable to the 1, and a number without a variable. So what am I going to do with this? Basically, I want to solve for two x's. And a quadratic equation, if I were to graph it, would look something like this, either a happy face or a frowny face. And if you notice, it's actually going to cross the x line in two places, okay? That's your x and your y. That's your x and your y. And we're going to solve for what are these two places. And we'll get into that as we work through these problems. So I'm going to erase what I just did, and let's look at how we're going to solve this problem. So I'm going to have this equation, and I want to break it into two pieces. So two sets of parentheses equal to 0. And from the foiling that we did in a previous lesson, we know that to get that x squared, I have to have an x in each of these parentheses, because if I was going to FOIL this, I would do the first times first. X times x is how I got my x squared. So that's why it's important to understand the foiling before you do the factoring. Okay, so now this is where it gets a little confusing. The bottom line is I need to figure out the rest of this problem. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take whatever a is and multiply it by whatever c is. Now, when a is 1, it's just going to be whatever c is. But let's not worry about that yet. Let's just look at 1 times 40. And I'm not going to worry about this, whether this multiplies to be a positive or negative, okay? 1 times 40 is 40. What I want to know is what is c, not when I multiply it out, because if a was a -1 times -40, it turned out to be a positive number. So all I want to do is multiply the number, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to look and see what is c. Is c positive or negative? If it's negative, I'm going to come over and make that 40 negative. If it's positive, I'll make the 40 positive, because that's going to help me. So the rules are simple, but they can be a little difficult to remember. I want to know what two numbers will multiply together to give me 40. And when I combine them, they're going to give me whatever B is. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out what are the factors of 40. I'm not going to worry about the negative side. I just want to know 40. 1 times 40 is 40. 2 times 20 is 40. 4 times 10, and 5 times 8. So what two numbers will multiply to give me 40? Anything in this T-chart. Those are the factors of 40. What times what gives me 40? Now, I want to know not only which two numbers will multiply to give me 40, but I want to know that when I combine the numbers either by adding or subtracting, it's going to give me B, and B is 3. So I want to get 3 out of them. And when do I multiply? I'm sorry, when do I add and when do I subtract? Well, it depends on what the sign is for C. If C is positive, I'm going to add. And in this case, C is negative. So I'm going to subtract. So I want to know what two numbers will multiply to give me 40, but when I subtract, they give me 3. And there's only one that will fit that bill, okay? Because remember, anything in this T-chart will multiply to be 40, but if I subtract, 40 minus 1 is 39, 20 minus 2 is 18, 10 minus 4 is 6, 8 minus 3, 8 minus 5 is 3. The only one that will fit the bill that will multiply to give me 40 and subtract to give me 3 is 5 and 8. I can put the 5 and the 8 in the parentheses, and it doesn't matter which order I go. I could go 8 and 5, or I could go 5 and 8. Now, I like to go by what I see in my T-chart first. I see 5, and I see 8. So that's how I put it, okay? Now, this is, remember, I need to subtract to get 3. And I need 3 to be positive. So if I'm subtracting, whatever B is, whatever that sign is for B, I'm going to put it on the biggest number. It's positive, so I make the 8 positive and the 5 negative. 8 minus 5 is a positive 3. Had B been negative, I'd make my biggest number negative, and I'd have 8 minus 5 is 3. 8's my biggest number, it's negative, so it would be a negative 3. So if I'm subtracting, whatever the sign for B is, I put on my biggest number. We'll look at what happens when I'm adding when we get to that problem. Okay, so I've done the first step, and I've actually done the hardest step. That's the hardest thing to do. Now, I've initially broken it out. Now, all I want to know is what is the X value when my Y equals 0. And remember that this is basically a graph. My X line, my Y line. And if I had a happy face, a positive parabola, and I go on this X axis right here, that means I move up or down from the X line 0 times. So that means my Y is 0 on the X axis. And that's what I'm looking for, okay? So all I'm going to do, and we'll do grafting on another separate lesson, so not to totally confuse everybody. We just want to focus on one thing at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, what would my X's be? And there's going to be 2 of them if my Y was 0. So all I'm going to do here is take both of these parentheses, and I'm going to say X minus 5 is 0. and x plus 8 is 0. And I'm just going to solve for x, because this is when my y is 0. For me, that was the hardest part, guys. I struggled with why could I make it 0? Not the other parts, but this part. But if my y is 0, I want to know what my x is. So I see x minus 5 is 0. So all I have to do is add 5 to both sides. So -5, +5, they'll cancel. 0 plus 5 is 5. So I have an x value when my y is 0. And I'll do the same thing to the other side. I have x plus 8 is 0. So I'm going to add the opposite, which is a -8. 8 minus 8 cancels. So x equals 0 plus -8 is -8. So x is -8 when my y is 0. So these are the two x values when my y is 0. The hardest part of the whole thing is this first step. At that point, all I need to do is make it equal to 0, and I have my x's. Let me clear this and let me do another one. So now I have x squared minus 15x plus 36 is equal to y. Well, I'm going to do the same thing as I did. The question is, what is the value of the two x's, or it could be graph the following. Okay, we'll get into the grafting on another lesson. But regardless, I need to know what the two x's are before I can do anything. So I'm just going to break this apart with two sets of parentheses equal to y. Now, this is the easy part, because to get that x squared, I just need an x in both of these parentheses. Then I need to figure out the rest of this problem. I make a t-chart. I like t-charts, guys. I'm going to take a times c. Now, I know it's going to be 36, but I'm going to practice this because if a is something other than 1, which would be the next lesson, then I have to be in a habit of multiplying it out. So I'm going to multiply 1 times 36 is 36. Then I'm going to look and see what is c. And remember that this is just ax squared plus bx plus c is y. I'm going to look at c. C is positive, so I'm going to put a plus sign right there. Okay? Now, let's figure out what are the factors of 36. Well, 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, I forgot that one, 4 times 9, and 6 times 6. Those are the factors of 36. The rules are this: what two numbers multiply to be 36, that's a times c, but when I combine them, they need to be b. B is 15. Now, anything inside this t-chart will meet the first criteria. What two numbers multiply to be 36? But only one of these will meet the second criteria. What two numbers not only multiply to be 36, but when I combine them, they'll be b, which is 15. Now, when I combine them, c was positive, so I'm going to add them together. So if I added 1 and 36, that would be 37. 2 and 18 is 20. 12 and 3 is 15. 9 and 4 is 13. And 6 and 6 is 12. There's only one set that will meet all the criteria. 12 times 3 is 36. 12 plus 3, because I'm adding, is 15. So I can put a 3 and a 12, or a 12 and a 3, it doesn't matter. Now, I told you we talk about this when we came to it. I'm adding, right? And I want b to be negative. So 12 plus 3 is 15. The only way to get a negative 15 if I had, let's say I had 12 plus 3 and it's all positive, I get a positive 15. If I have a negative 12 plus a negative 3, signs are the same, so I add 12 plus 3 is 15, I keep the same sign. When I'm adding, whatever the sign is for B, just put it in both of them. And that's the hard part. What two numbers multiply to be 36, but when I combine them, either add or subtract, they turn out to be whatever B is. Well, -3 and -12. 3 times 12 is 36. Negative times negative makes that 36 positive. 3 plus 12 is 15. So there we have it. Now, my next question is going to be, what are the x values when my y is equal to 0? So I'm just going to change y. If y is 0, then what are my x values? Well, I'm just going to take the first parenthesis, x minus 3, make it equal to 0, and the second parenthesis, x minus 12, make it equal to 0, because that's when y is 0. You can also call this function of y. F parentheses y equals 0. F of y, or function of y is 0. It just means I replace the y with 0. You can see that on tests, I promise you. So x minus 3 is 0. How do I get it to be 0 if I'm adding 3 to it? Well, I'm sorry, if I'm adding a -3, well, add a positive 3. My negative and positive 3, they cancel. 0 plus 3 is 3. So I have an x is 3 when my y is 0. I'll do the same thing to the next one. X minus 12 is 0. So let's add 12 to both sides. -12, positive 12, they cancel. 0 plus 12 is 12 when my y is 0. Now, some people can do it this way, and that's totally fine if you can do this. I like to see the work personally, so that's why I do it the longer way. But if I'm making it equal to 0, you can just change the sign in both of these. And some people do it that way, and it's not wrong. If they see it's a -12, you just make it a +12. If it's a -3, you make it a +3. Some people do that, and it's not wrong. Me personally, I like to see it when I'm doing it. It just helps my brain. Let me do one more, then I'm going to give you 2 to practice, and we'll practice a bunch of these. And all we want to go as far as finding the 2 values of x when y is 0. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so we have this equation. X squared minus 10x plus 24 is y. Okay, what is the value of x when y is 0? Or it could be grafting it. We'll do another one later on grafting, how to graft a quadratic equation. But I'm going to do those in separate individual lessons. Either way, we need to find the value of the x's before we can do anything. So I'm going to take this quadratic equation and I'm going to break it apart. And we do that by factoring. I take this x squared, I'll put an x in both. That's the easy part. Now I'm going to take a times c. I don't see a number for a. That's the number in front of the x, so I know it's 1. They're not going to tell you that. I'm going to take a times c. 1 times 24 is 24. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see what is c. C is positive. So I'm going to put a plus sign over here. Okay. Now I need to know the factors of 24. Well, 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8. I almost forgot 3 times 8. And 4 times 6. So the rules are simple. What 2 numbers multiply to be 24? Anything in this T-chart. Now, I want it to combine to be 10. We have to be careful because I could actually get 10 from this T-chart two different ways. I could take 12 minus 2 is 10, or 6 plus 4 is 10. That's why it's important to pay attention to what we need to do. If we look at C, we see that it's positive. That means I need to get this 10 by adding them together, not subtracting. If C was negative, then I'd subtract to get 10. Even though I can get 10 with the 6 and the 4 or the 2 and the 12, only one of these is correct. In this case, it's going to be the 6 and 4. I'll put 6 first and 4 next, just to show it doesn't matter. Now, because I'm adding, that means the signs must be the same. So if I'm adding, I'm just going to go with whatever that sign is for B. It's negative, so they're both negative. Negative 6 plus negative 4 is negative 10. That is B. That's what I want to make sure. So negative x minus 6, x minus 4 equals y. I want to know what the x values are when my y is 0. So I'm just going to replace the y with 0. Or I could say the function of y is 0. And it just meant I'm going to replace that y that I had here. I had y. I'm going to replace that with 0. So that's all the function means. Function of whatever, in this case, variable y. It could be x, it could be a, it could be b, it could be whatever. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two sets of parentheses and I'm going to make it equal to 0. If you want to just change the signs, you can do that. But I'm going to do the math. X minus 6 is 0. So if I add 6 to both sides, x equals 6 when my y is 0. X minus 4 is 0. I add 4 to both sides. X equals a positive 4 when my y is 0. So here is a quadratic equation. I'm factoring it down to find the values of the two x's. I may be actually grafting it. That's another lesson. But regardless, even if I'm going to graft it, I still need to know what these points are. I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to start having you guys practice. Okay, so this problem is going to look very much like the other one, but it's different. X squared minus 10x minus 24 is y. It looks an awful lot like the last problem. I'm doing it on purpose just so we can see. You have to make sure you're picking the right numbers, because sometimes more than one number will you can use more than one number, one set, but only one set will be correct. So x squared minus 10x minus 24. I know to get that x squared, I have an x in both. Then I'm going to take a times c. 1 times 24 is 24. I see that c is negative, so we'll put that negative sign right there. What factors give me 24? Well, 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. Remember, what I'm looking for is what two numbers multiply to be 24, and when I combine them, they give me 10. The last problem, 6 and 4 gave me 10 because I was adding. In this case, I'm subtracting. The only way to get 10 by subtracting is to take 12 minus 2 is 10. So I'm going to put 2 in one, 12 in the other. And remember, when I'm subtracting, that means the signs are different. So these cannot have the same sign. They're the same sign when I'm adding them together, but when I'm subtracting, one's positive, one's negative. Which ones can be negative? Well, just look at B. I want my B to be negative. So I make the biggest number negative and the smaller one positive. Negative 12 plus 2, signs are different, so I subtract. 12 minus 2 is 10. I keep the sign of the biggest number, which is 12, so my 10 is negative. These are little tricks to help you. I want to remember whatever C is the function I'm going to do. And then, if I'm subtracting, then I want my biggest number to be whatever B, the sign of B is. If I'm adding to get the number, then I make both of those signs whatever B is. So let's find the value of x. X plus 2. Remember, I want to know what x is when y is 0. So x plus 2 is 0. X minus 12 is 0. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So x is 2 when my y is 0. X minus 12 is 0. So I'm going to add 12 to both sides. Oh, guys, do you see what I just did? I lost my sign. Take a look right here. I don't mind making mistakes. I like it when I catch it because it shows you how easy it is to make that mistake. I didn't do that on purpose. That's an honest mistake. I put a plus 2 when I should have done a negative 2 on both sides. My positive and negative 2, they'll cancel. That was a mistake. But because I'm doing it the same way and I see my work, it gives me an opportunity to catch it. Y is 0 when x is negative 2. I'm going to do the same thing to the other one. X minus 12 is 0. In this case, I'm going to add 12 to both sides. So x is 12 when my y is 0. The mistake I made was I lost my sign. 3 common mistakes you're going to make. Calculation errors, transcription errors, you copied it wrong, and losing your signs. It's easy to do all 3 of those. So make sure you're looking for those. Okay, I'm going to have you guys do actually 3 problems. So hang on just a second. Okay, these are the 3 problems I want you to work on. You can pause the recording and work on them, but the problems are x squared plus 12x plus 27 equals y, x squared minus 12x plus 35 equals y, and x squared plus 8 minus 9 equals y. Pause the recording, work on all 3. I want you to find the value of the 2 x's. Then we'll work on these individually, walk straight through it together. Okay, let's take a look and see what we have. We have x squared plus 12x plus 27 equals y. Well, I need to know the value of the 2 x's when y is 0, or it could be graphed the following. So I'm going to break this quadratic equation up by factoring. X squared, I get that by putting an x in both sets of parentheses. I'm going to come over, draw my t-chart. I like t-charts, guys. It helps me keep myself organized. I'm going to take A times C. A is 1. There's nothing in front of the x squared, so I know it's 1. C is 27. 1 times 27 is 27. I'm also going to look at C. It's positive, so I'm going to put a plus sign right there. Now, what are the factors of 27? It's pretty easy. There's not many. 1 times 27 and 3 times 9. So the rules are, what 2 numbers multiply to be 27, and when I combine them, in this case adding, I get 12. Well, there's only one possible answer. 9 plus 3, or 3 plus 9, is 12. So that's what it's got to be, 3 and 9. Now, I want my B, or my 12 in this case, to be positive, and because I'm adding, the signs have to be the same, so I make them both positive. That's the hard part. Now, all I'm going to do is say if the function of x I'm sorry, the function of y is 0, let's just replace that y with 0. They're not going to tell you this. It's just something you need to know. When I'm trying to solve this, I make my y 0. So I'm going to break these two parentheses apart. 0, x plus 3 is 0. X plus 9 is 0. How do I get 0 if I'm adding 3 to it? I take 3 away from it. 3 minus 3, and then 0 plus a -3 is -3. That's when my y is 0, because the 0 is your y. Same thing for the next one. X plus 9 is 0. So the opposite is subtract 9, or add a -9 to both sides. -9 plus 9, they cancel. 0 minus 9 is a -9 when my y is 0. Let's take a look at the next one. Okay, so I've got this one, x squared minus 12x plus 35 is y. The question is either to graph the following equation or what are the values of the two x's. So I'm going to factor this apart. No matter what I do, I need to know what my x's are. To get that x squared, I know I need an x in both sets of parentheses. If we did the foiling lesson, we know we have to have an x in both parentheses to get the x squared. Then I'm going to take a times c. I don't see anything in front of the x squared, so I know a is 1. My c is 35, so 1 times 35 is 35. Take a look at b. I'm sorry, take a look at the sign for c. It's positive, so I'm just going to put a plus there on top of the t-chart. Now, what are the factors of 35? Well, it's pretty simple. 1 times 35 and 5 times 7. And I do believe that's it. So what two numbers will multiply to give me 35? Anything in the t-chart. But they also have to add, or combine to be b, and because c is positive, I need to add to b 12. So there's only one that's going to do it, 5 and 7. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 plus 7 is 12. That's the only possible combination that would fit both rules. Now, because I'm adding, that means the signs have to be the same. 7 plus 5 or -7 plus -5. The signs have to be the same because I'm adding. So the only way to get a -12 is for both of these numbers to be negative. So if you look at b, if I'm adding, the signs have to be the same, then whatever the sign is for b, I can put it in for both of them. If I was subtracting, then I put whatever b is for the biggest number. And that will be the next problem. Now, we need to solve for the two x's. So I'm going to use the function of x. I'm going to make x equal to 0. I'm sorry. I'm going to make y equal to 0, function of y. I'm so used to function of x, guys. I'm sorry. So I'm going to make y equal to 0. So x minus 5 is going to be 0. And x minus 7 is going to be 0. Add 5 to both sides. Negative and positive 5, they cancel. X is 0 plus 5 is 5 when my y is 0. X minus 7 is 0, so I'll add 7 to both sides. Negative and positive 7, they cancel. 0 plus 7 is 7 when my y is 0. So I found my x values when my y is 0. I'll need that if I'm going to graph. And when we get to the grafting, you'll see what I mean. That will be another lesson. Let's take a look at the last one and we'll call it a day. Okay, so this time we have x squared plus 8x minus 9 is y. Well, I know I need to factor the quadratic equation standard form that I have here so I can find the values of both x's when y is 0. So I'm going to put an x in both sets of parentheses. Then I'm going to come over and say a times c. 1 times 9 is 9. And then I'm going to look at what is the sign for c. Well, I see that it's a negative. So I'm going to write a negative sign right here on the t-chart. And all I'm going to say is what are my factors of 9? 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. Either of these will give me 9 when I multiply them. But only one of them will give me 8, which is B, when I subtract. 9 minus 1 is 8. 9 minus 1 is 8. Now, I want 8 to be positive. That means I need to make my biggest number positive. Remember, if I'm subtracting, signs are different. A positive 9, negative 1, or 9 minus 1 is a positive 8. Had it been a negative 9 plus 1, that would have been a negative 8. If I'm subtracting, the signs must be different. 1 times 9 is 9. Negative times positive makes that 9 negative. 9 minus 1 is 8. Not a positive 9, negative 1, that makes that 8 positive. So, guys, that's the hardest part of the whole thing. Then, all I need to do is say what is my x value when my y is 0. So I'm just going to replace the y with 0. And I'm going to say x minus 1 is equal to 0, and x plus 9 is equal to 0. Remember, the 0 is what y is. X minus 1, so let's add 1 to both sides. Negative and positive 1, they cancel. 0 plus 1 is 1. So my x is 1 when my y is 0. And then I have x plus 9 is 0. So let's add a negative 9 to both sides. My positive and negative 9, they cancel. 0 plus a negative 9 is a negative 9 when my y is 0. So this is how you factor to find the two x values when y is 0. This is how you factor when a is 1. Okay. Good job, people. Look for my next tutorial. It will be how to factor when a is greater than 1. Not that much more complicated, but there are a few more steps. Other than that, guys, have a good day, and I will see you next time.